Hello, I'm John Fallon, General Manager of Bruntec. We are very excited about our success to date, and we look forward to meeting the challenges of tomorrow. If we can be of any assistance to your organization in solving your technical repair problems, please call us. Remember Bruntec, area code 506-693-8884. I'm John Fallon, Bruntec's General Manager. In Bruntec, our product is service. Family. It's a lot of fun coming up here to do this to Dupray because he deserves it. He has been known for years as the master of ceremonies of these things out here in Millidgeville. You notice when he gets up to take the tray, there was no hesitation. He just walked up and he knew exactly where to stand and what angle from the top. He's done this before. It's my pleasant duty to go over Greg's history of the company, along with presenting again. Now, a lot of people have been stepping on my lines, and I'm going to talk to them after this is over. But anyway, I started off when Greg was hired in Newcastle as a CO man in plant on June 30th, 1953. He was put out on the-job training immediately by his new boss, Mr. Shepard, who's here. Mr. Shepard taught him how to pack test sets for shipment, and the next day he taught he and Nicky Matchett how to dig and place an anchor. Both jobs which Greg got very good at. He apparently failed either the packing or the digging, I'm not sure which, because he returned to Newcastle in January of '56. There's some indication he may have been homesick, because he married Rose on August the 2nd the same year. Apparently Herb needed a good digger and packer in Campbellton because Greg was transferred along with his new bride in October of that year, 1956. And it's also apparent that he got better at digging and packing because he did everything from being a CO man to acting as the wire chief in Campbellton, Bathurst, to Newcastle from '56 to '63. It was in the same period that he developed his proficiency in driving, which has been mentioned earlier today. He excelled in the Thames vans and Anglia cars, I'm told. It was also in this period that he became highly proficient at patching sea carriers, something that I managed to run into him in the '57-'58 period. In November 1963, the company took a major step and a calculated risk and appointed Greg an I&R foreman here in St. John. He also had a few stints as acting manager customer services. In November, the company decided they finally had a good packer and digger, so they decided to share Greg's talents with the rest of the employee body. They made Greg an instructor in the plant school, something that Rocky just talked about. Greg was also able to use all of his talents, as many talents, as a vehicle driver in this period because he not only taught installation courses, but, as was mentioned before, was responsible for the driver training. Apparently, the vehicle accident rate increased significantly because in March of '78 he was transferred back to the I&R. In April of 1986, the company finally decided to get this great driver off the road and put him in charge of in-house repair, a job which led to his current assignment in Bruntec, where his original training in the hands of Mr. Shepard finally came to fruition. Greg has still got a stick out digging in the compost. And he's still trying to find set shipped 100 feet away from the warehouse. So shipping and digging are still in there. Some of you may feel like we're being compared, Greg, and it's probably true. But you have to realize that he's been involved in some of the greatest pranks that have ever been played on people. And everything from the stories about him in his early days, he deserves because he's done it to others. Just think of what he did to poor Arthur, Art Bond, and Doug Murray. When he was supposed to be carrying one of these things, all morning the day, he coughed and spitted and let on as how he was sick and wasn't feeling good. He left at about 12 noon and said to Doug, I'm not going to be back, I'm sick. So Doug went immediately to Art and said, you're going to have to do that if he doesn't come back. And the effervescent Mr. Murray locked himself in the toilet. So when Greg arrived back at 1 o'clock, with a shower and shave and a new suit, he found Art down in the corner of his office digging in the box he kept for sleeves and those especially conservative ties of his, trying to become conservative, while Bill was reading him the agenda for the afternoon. Greg is changing jobs in the next few days, moving from NBTel to Buick. Rose, on the other hand, is retaining her job, looking after shows, except that she will have fewer, and he'll have bigger feet and require more attention. Greg, it gives me great pleasure to present you with your pen.
Morning, John.
Be Miss
Couldn't be.
Hey, I think there's something going on here. Kathy's
I don't
trying
misfile.
to correct any misfiles that she's
I don't
got.
miss
There's no misfiles in here, is there?
No.
Well, it's either misfiled or in here. That's one of the.
Well, where's your briefcase?
I haven't had it here for a long time.
John,
I keep it at home.
I think you might have
He's using it as a boat anchor.
Bottles in it.
Sure. John, I know it's in your briefcase.
No, it's not.
Are you sure?
I've never had it. You got the file in the APTC thing?
Nope.
You got the number for the conference
See,
call?
he's squirming now. The conference calls in a few minutes, and he doesn't have the file.
Gotcha, did you, John?
You cut it out. I don't need any more. I cut it out. Jeez.
It's your turn, John.
Yeah, I know. But you're awful early. You're at least 2.5 weeks early. Did you answer all these questions?
Oh,
You
yes.
can turn that off.
Very well.
Oh, it was there.
Was it misfiled,
No,
Kathy?
it was there, but see,
Would you get this
see
on
how
tape?
you can't see the number in the file? See how it's just too
It's
full?
Over full.
So I thought it was not there.
When I leave, they'll probably get someone who can really
I'm
do
sorry.
this.
We're gonna burn the filing cabinet.
Kathy wants to.
Oh, dear.
Hello, Joe. How did that?
I hear you're going to the woodshed.
I'd like to know what enticed him to wear a suit and tie.
Where's the barn?
He's buying your coffee. Look, free coffee.
I'm
I don't
giving
think I can handle this.
I'm giving the big one before he leaves.
Oh my God! Did anybody see it come out of his pocket?
Change go to you too?
No, geez, don't scare him. Get out of here with that.
Ooh, Marion.
Did you watch him take the money out of his pocket?
No, I don't know where he got the money from. I think he stole it. What do you think?
Anytime the money comes out of his pocket,
I mean,
there's
how
always
could he-
a bunch of laws and
How could he
dust.
go in his pocket when he's up like this hanging on to a camera? Huh? Told me that.
Today.
It's almost over.
Yeah, well, we're getting there. Want to have a look at this?
Sure. Leave me some of the dirty stuff.
Very good. All right. Earl? Yo. How's that team? Yeah, all right. All right.
Good job. You're saying not to. And by the way, try to make it time. It's not the 24th, it's the 14th.
Hey, didn't we get rid of you guys a couple years ago?
We're back again. Why didn't you tell me this party was at 2:30?
Gee, we had a party for John and nobody came. You doing? Who is that man?
Who's that guy?
Got a good looking girl there.
Isn't that something? Well now.
How you been?
Rested.
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 Good.
Look at the gorgeous.
This is the memorial event, eh?
Hey Max, how you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Just a sec there. Free your hand up. Pretty good.
Come on, Max.
Well, photograph me. There's the star.
How you doing, young fella? Just really. You like that? Hi, young fella.
Are you a sailor, mister?
I remember you. You used to be a sailor, didn't you?
What are you saying, John? What do you want to wear tigers?
I'm not. You watch. Oh, God, I am late today, aren't
Since I feel short, I should have wore stilts.
We haven't time to see. So we'll have to.
This.
Happy Retirement Day!
Where's my hug?
Not yet. I'll be pinning someone. Robin, are you happy to be off school? Huh? You should see it in there.
Oh, my heavens.
Lynn's got it all. John,
Yes, dear.
you want a hug?
Yes, I do.
Well, I can't hug you. Happy retirement,
Thank you,
John.
Ken.
Now listen, everyone's going
Yes, I
to
knew.
this
I
today.
knew
Now where do
that.
you want to put it?
We'll just put it in there so I can get my hands on it. See, I'm going to give
Pay
it.
stuff. You want to get paid or?
Oh, God, that's important. Is that today? That was yesterday.
You got paid yesterday.
What is today, anyway?
Today is Friday. No, Robin, where can I put this?
Put it right in there where I can reach it. Okay? I think I get it in my notes.
You got notes.
Well,
Jeez, he's got notes. Robin, did you help him? Did it in my homework book. Oh, did he? You can't help us say all that.
well, no.
Some of it. Look at the jacket he's got on. He's all decked out, eh,
You like that?
Yeah.
Oh, look at here.
Yeah.
Hey, you're not going
Hi, young fella.
I'm not going out in the boat now, buddy.
Did you see they're launching them down there right now?
No, I haven't.
Oh, yeah. They got 5 or 6 of the men. Mine goes in tomorrow morning.
Are you nervous, John?
What are you nervous about? What are you nervous about?
I knew you were. I knew it. By the way he was moving. He was nervous, Robin.
Oh, I saw the orange dress.
Yeah.
Don't need to be nervous, fella. I was the same way, but it was nothing to it.
That's
I
it.
know,
He's nervous.
I'll get over it soon. That's the whole thing.
He is, isn't he? Come in and see. Do you want to? Oh, maybe you're going to have to come in with your dad, maybe. I don't know.
Not really? What do you think, Robin? Should we be nervous or what? With the camera stuck in my face?
You're usually a good.
Oh, yeah, I know. Now I know how it feels. It's not the answer. Let's get on and see these people. Good stuff. How are you doing? You remember Brian, don't you?
Congratulations there, young man. Definitely.
What are you doing?
It's great, yourself?
So we did your, I haven't seen these rages, did you get a hot spot and lie down and sort of take it?
They count you, my boy. See you then.
You're finally making the big move, my boy.
How sweet it is.
Oh, I know.
Now you're gonna know.
This is a big daughter, eh? Remember her?
Yes, get on the boat.
She used to be short.
Yeah.
Used to be short.
The last time I saw her, she wouldn't even like my speech.
Strange people.
I'm not gonna do it.
They're not
gonna steal our spot this summer, right?
I'm going to be in there most of the summer, so remember that.
I'm supposed to kiss you on the cheek with my wife, but I don't think
Sorry, you can't pass. Have your red hair. Don't do it. How you doing, young fella?
Pretty nice down.
Something going all right?
Yep, we invited Joe there, and I'm going to show up. We're down, thought we might be down there today.
You have to be there. Jesus, sorry. Oh, this young lady's Robin's my daughter. You thought it was my girlfriend, right?
It is. Hi, Robin. How are you?
Terry?
How you doing, sir?
Congratulations.
How you doing, young fella? Is it all right? Are you enjoying it?
Oh, yeah, I recommend it.
Well, I get 2 weeks into it, and I found it quite healthy. Very healthy.
How do you like having Dad home? I'm not gonna change your mind. That's what we're here for.
No.
Make sure you don't change your mind.
That's what George is here for.
George and I have the same mind.
Good, Ron?
John?
Good to see you.
Yeah, I see you, but that's all
Right, yeah, all ready to go.
That's loyal. I suppose you just ready for lunch.
Oh, they are lunching down there this afternoon. Oh,
I know you got to
Terry's retired, man.
Hi, Dad. Exciting day for your dad.
Yeah, she's been short. She's been short. Good flowers and everything. Yeah. Good looking girl. Smiley's got us on camera again. Can you tell when the red light is?
I want more than one. Just a second. My mind's recharged. Are you okay, John?
No,
John, you want,
come and hold my hand.
you want a belt?
Yeah, get anything?
Hold it all together anyway.
You're not even looking at me. Can't even see me. You're going to give me...
Oh, sorry, Mike.
Smile, your best smile. Is it good?
Sweet, you're on TV today.
Vern was asking me if that's how you get
Creepy what?
Feel relaxed?
No, nervous as hell. Oh, oh, that's right too. They really is.
Everything's fine.
Stay on that chair over there. Another one with my name on it up there?
Up behind that table.
I put the boat on the table.
You're looking pretty fine, John.
Well, notice I get all my sailing studs on this is the way I when I'm racing. The whip goes with it. You beat the crew with it.
I don't think he beats you out.
Well, once in a while. So many potential things for I can depict on.
No, these are just a few mild things.
Oh.
Nothing too much.
Were there some mild things as well?
It's hard to
I couldn't remember anything.
What?
We don't do this anymore.
We don't do this anymore?
We're sophisticated for this. We don't do this anymore. We're mothers now.
Doris, what do you think?
Oh, what?
Are you happy?
Yes, I'm working
You
today.
enjoying it? What?
Catering to your party.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Hi, Guy.
Hi, John, how you doing?
See the Robbie?
He's back again.
Remember? This is my daughter, Robin. Yeah.
Hey, you good?
Guy?
You're all ready to go sailing?
Well, yeah. That was part of the deal here today. I wasn't supposed to wear a tie, but
He's got the boat parked out in the parking lot.
someone asked me if this is the tie you get when you come in last.
Oh, is that right?
Only consistently. Almost too nice to be in here, isn't it?
Just think, John, only 3 more hours to go.
Yeah, that's right. How you doing, Naz? What do you think? Thank you. Yeah, I know. A number of people have said that. Yeah, a lot of younger people. What's your name, Les?
Boo. Boo.
This guy here, I spent a lot of time cooking. Let's cook that.
Well, John, congratulations, and gee, I feel sorry for you. Put up with him all the time. Huh?
It's kind of nice.
You think you're up to that?
She's losing weight now that I'm cooking.
Yeah. Have you got a place to run and hide now and then when he gets on your nerves?
Treehouse.
Send him it.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. You got that right.
You'll let me know when it's
Just a second.
Sue? Sue, pull it over, close it over.
Starting at time now, John.
I don't believe this.
Is that a magic marker on you, John? Give the dots.
You join them? Are they numbered?
No. It mix up. That's right, gone.
Anybody here?
Switch?
Is that any better?
Better.
If I could have your attention, please, we'll get things started. If everybody could either find a seat or a comfortable place to stand. There's a few seats still left up front here. Have any volunteers? I'd like to welcome you all here for John's retirement celebration and grand turnout, beautiful day. And I guess we've got some special guests with us that we'd like to introduce. And at my far right is Max Ross, John's father-in-law. And John's lovely daughter, Robin. And, oh, what's his name?
Yeah.
My name is Les Crookshank, and I'm your master of ceremonies today because I was the highest bidder. There's really a lot of action. When anybody finds out that you're going to have a chance to stand up here and talk about John and not have him answer back, there's really intense competition. And I think our first order of business, we're going to change our format. Everybody in favor of turning this into a roast, say aye.
He knows too much.
Just kidding, John. We really wouldn't do that. Merle, would you turn him over every 50 minutes, please? I was really quite relieved to find out that John was going to retire, because my great fear was that I wasn't going to be able to outweight him, and he would be up here and I'd be sitting down there. So
This is scary.
and the other thing is, and the other thing that's really quite fortunate with such a fine day outside, it's kind of surprising that he's here, because I've just found out that this is the day that the boats go in at the yacht club. So we're lucky he even turned up. But really, it's a real privilege for me to be here. John's retiring after 36 years, and I think I've known him for about 35 and a half at least. We both started out in central office work, John in Fredericton, and I was in St. John. And I guess it wasn't too many weeks after we started that we were both ended up scheduled on a TD2 course. I think probably the first locally run TD2 course, I think somewhere out of town, but that was the real hot technology of the day. Do you remember TD2, anybody? And I guess we were probably both kicking around here when really the first TD2 message channels and the first live TV network broadcasts were made, so we go back a long way. Our careers have crossed several times since then. I transferred to Fredericton just after John came to St. John. He ended up coming back to Fredericton as my supervisor, so I've had the option of working with him and for him, and with him is better. Just kidding, we get along great. But one of the problems I really ran into very quickly in kind of following John around in my career was when I went to Fredericton. Back in those days, we had a lot of open wire facilities still in place, and we had a device called a Wheatstone Bridge. Now, some of you graybeards may remember it, but whenever we had a short circuit on an open wire pair or ground or something, you'd have to test with this thing and measure the resistance out to the short and back again. And in the meantime, there's a great hulk of a lineman standing there beside you in his rain gear. Like, these guys are never out on a day like this. It's always sleet storms and thunderstorms and all that kind of thing. So the accuracy of these measurements were pretty sacred to these guys. And you kind of do your best and look it up on a chart and say, yeah, it's 4.2 miles beyond a certain point. So out he'd go, and the next thing you know, about 3 hours later, he's standing in front of you again, water dripping off his radio. Fallon got me closer than that. So he set a real standard for that kind of thing, at least in the minds of those guys, that all of us had a real struggle living up to. But I think when a lot of people retire after 36 years in the same organization, I guess their hope is that they would, at some time in their life, raise the standards that the organization works under, or at least the area that they're in, and that they'd have a positive impact on their environment. And I think John's had that in several cases. He's more than his share. And I would guess he's probably worked in and visited almost every corner of this province in his work, particularly on his sales and safety side of the job. I know he got around a lot in that. And I'll have to say a few nice things about him, I suppose, but John always approached, really, and I mean this, so he always approached any job with determination and enthusiasm and a concern for doing it right. And he applied it with a little bit of Fallon flair every time. As an example, I'm right now working on a provincial safety and wellness committee, and we have meetings on occasion, and we get around to talking about procedures and defensive driving and all that sort of thing, and you still get comments around the table, well, back in John Fallon's day, or when John's group put this procedure in. So that's the type of impact in that area that John's had. He really tackled every job to the very best of his ability and did a top-notch job every time. But before he gets too swell-headed, maybe we'll get along with some presentations. And for the presentations of the President's Award, President and Chief Executive Officer Lino Celeste.
Thank you, Wes. And I'm one of that group that was vying for the position of Master of Ceremonies, too. Because, but actually you're doing such a good job at it, I'm glad I didn't compete too hard. But look, John Fallon's one of those fellows that, as they say, everyone would like to get back at. None of us have ever dared to try and do it privately or in a small group, because You've got to have a lot of self-confidence that you're going to come out ahead of the game. Usually you don't. But, you know, John Fallon is, for some of you who don't know it, I mean the older people do it. Back when we came to work for the company, and I came just a couple of years after him, there was the plant department and the engineering department. And over the years there was a lot of cross-fertilization. But there was some people in the company who were plant man forever, and there were other people who were engineering department people forever. Well, I want to tell you, John was a plant man. To this day, there is no way we would accept John in the fraternity. And you know, John probably wouldn't join. Because over the years, the battles that we have had about the various roles, I mean, what he has called the engineers, he would never stoop that low to be in that kind of position. But those were pretty heavy and heated debates. But as they say, usually John was right. That's what made the engineers so darn mad. Okay? I can remember one time that he was in the general plant department. And that's the department where most of the criticism of what the engineers did got started, whether it was deserved or not. And I remember one time when we changed the old step-by-step office used to be down in West Side, and we moved it to Lancaster. You'd think Lancaster office was always there, right? It wasn't. Well, when you move a switching center, some of the cables now are a different distance from the switch, and they're different gauges. And someone in the engineering department had figured out that the loss on the customer's lines who used to be close to the office down the west side was going to be greater now that they went the longer distance to Lancaster. And of course the engineers never consulted with the plant department. They said, geez, this is a shame, we can't have this happen. But it was going to cost $60,000 to rebuild the manhole so we could load the cable. And like all good engineers, and I think I led the charge on cost reductions in those days just like I do now. And I said, $60,000, we're not going to do that. So we come up with a scheme that if their transmission got, because it was still going to be good transmission, it's just it wasn't as good as it was before, but still met standards. So we said, well, if we deteriorate their service a little bit at a time, you know, every 2 or 3 weeks. Geez, they laughed then too. So the engineers went over to Lancaster with 2,000 or 5,000 resistors. And on every line, they had a little pad on there. And every few days they would go over and they'd cut one of the resistors out, which would increase the size of the pad and gradually decrease their transmission. Well, I can remember John Fallon coming into the executive, in the plant department, and eventually probably right up to Ken. He said, "You are not going to believe what those fellas are doing this time." But anyway, as it turns out that it did work and we saved the $60,000, but John's never forgiven us since. But however, despite the little battles that we've had over the years and the good times discussing the various ways out of the various problems we had in the company, believe it or not, some of you think we got problems today. We had them back then too. And but we had a team just like we have today. We set about to find solutions to them. And believe it or not, we fought and blamed each other about who was responsible or who had the best idea for fixing it. But in the end, we did fix it. And despite all the battles, and all the name calling, we got things fixed. And John was always one of those who came up with usually the right idea to fix the problem. If you got John involved, you had a solution. But John had some other things he liked to do. And now I have to be careful. I don't know how far I can go because his daughter's here. But I'll bet you didn't know that Dad loved fast cars, big boats, and he didn't think I knew much about this, but I mean, I came from the Grand Lake area. I knew what went on in Grand Lake. And most everybody in Grand Lake knew a John Fallon. But then John settled down, and over the years he has been a pretty fantastic employee. And he has never lost his ability to keep up with what had to be done in NBTel. And to this day, John is very careful to give credit to a lot of the people that work in his group in Bruntec. That's the other thing about John. I mean, sometimes he doesn't appear that he gives credit. But I want to tell you, John gives a lot of credit to the people in his group in Bruntec in terms of some of the things that they've developed and the good work they've done there. And the credit is well deserved to the people that are there, but I don't think it can take away from John and John's input into that. So John has been one of those employees who has been through it all in terms of technology and time changes at NBTel. He's adapted extremely well, and he's leaving the company having made a pretty fantastic contribution, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that on behalf of the company right now. And on behalf of myself, and I recognize it to the extent that I forgive you for some of it. So John, to you and Robin, I just hope you have the best in your retirement. It's very, very well deserved. And don't be a stranger, come and see us now and then, but I've got something for you to take on and remind you of NBTel.
Thank you, Lino. Now, Herb Doucette, the General Manager of Human Resources for the service station.
He knows too much too.
We're going to be pretty easy on you, John, but I do want to know that before I start, tell me, you got to tell me honestly now, how much did you have to pay to get all these people?
A lot of them, I wanted to make sure I was gone.
Well said. I figured you owed them all money.
Kathy's looking after that.
Pardon me?
Kathy's looking after that.
That's great. Well, John and I go back a little ways. I know that, John, you may not remember this, but I first met you in the summer of '57. And, yeah, I was a central office installer with Northern. Really green behind the ears. I think John was too, but he would never admit it. Now, he was a central office man in Fredericton. He'd been hired the year before. Now, you may not remember this, but I remember that first meeting very well. It seemed John was always talking. He knew more about everything and anything than anybody I had ever met before. I was impressed. Anyway, as the story goes, that fall I returned to studies, and I didn't imagine I'd ever have this pleasure of meeting John again, as impressive as he was. Now, after completing studies, and I had a 3-year stint in the Air Force, I did come back to New Brunswick with NBTel, and sure enough, we crossed paths again. For John's persuasive logic had moved him from central office foreman in St. John to network supervisor in Fredericton. We worked together in that 1965 time frame, what was known as the Sage Buick Defense Project. Can you remember it well? But any inference to the Sage part was not to be attributed to John. Now, on opening night, with Premier Louis Robichaud, Ken Cox, and many other dignitaries, in fact, the whole New Brunswick cabinet, John was at it again. This time, he talked his way onto the television screen and stole the show. The whole evening, anyway, with all the new equipment and dignitaries, and John and his team to show it off as a great success. Thanks, John. Now, we ran into each other periodically over the next few years, where John held positions in the sales, safety, and security in the plant organization. In 1977, you'll recall, John, we got to work together again in what was known as the Operations Staff Organization. And John headed up the safety organization. In fact, you know, he was so dedicated to the job that he made his people make their contributions. John Irvin broke his little finger, and John Taylor lost his finger. I was going to mention the breaking of the leg, but I'm sure you took enough ribbing on that already. I know that, however, a little more serious note, he did much to advance the cause of safety in our organization at the time. He was responsible for many new and updated practices, and he was also a strong proponent and advocate of what they call discipline without punishment. And I'm sure, John, in fact, I have some clips that I'll leave with you. You remember many of the Wise Owl presentations. We went our separate ways in 1982. I went to planning, and John went to become supervisor of the PSCC. Now, I really believe John found his niche later, and that was 2 or 3 years after when he took over Bruntec. And I think, as perhaps Lino already mentioned, he is a born entrepreneur, and he also has a futuristic technology bent. Some might question that. He has a very strong desire to succeed, and I believe his dedication to learning and keeping up with technology really stood him in good stead over the years. Bruntec clearly has made a name for itself and is well known for its innovation and capability. In all the years that I've known John, I can honestly say that he gave full measure and always had the interests of the company and his employees at heart. And I believe that he shows that same fervent dedication to his pride and joy, his daughter Robin. A colorful figure for sure, who doesn't know the meaning of half measure. I will, in fact, we'll all miss him. John, I wish you and your lovely daughter Robin the very best as you undertake your new career. God bless and good luck. And if you'll come here, damn it, I'll pin this pin on you.
Stop for a second and look towards me. A little happier, sir, if you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. And now for the Pioneer Life membership, I guess the guy that's known John even longer than I have, perhaps, Jerry McRae.
Another one knows me.
Thank you, Les. Well, John, I'm here to welcome you to that never land of retirement. I'd just like to point out a couple of things to you, though. I arrived here early today, 5 minutes to 3. The boys were worried I wouldn't make it until 2 minutes to. I find that while I was working, I thought I was a pretty efficient guy, and I'm sure you think the same. And I accomplished a lot. I find now that I'm retired, I can only accomplish about a quarter of what I used to. And the big reason is that when I worked, I had very efficient secretaries. And they kept me on track. And I really owe a lot of my success to them. Well, now I find that I'm very disorganized. I lose things. I miss dates. I'm late for meetings. I schedule 2 things on the same day. I've asked Mary and my wife if she'll take on the job, and no way. So my first recommendation is to get yourself a good secretary. Well, as somebody said, John and I go back a long ways, and I'm glad Lino led into the engineering plant conflict, because I had one little thing to contribute to that too. But I met John when I first started doing TD2 routines. I was out of St. John, and St. John was the guru of
TD2 routines headed by Matt Cobham, and he would send us fledglings up the river to do the routines, and we would pick up the local people along the way. It was sort of hands-on training for them. We did all our TD2 routines at night. So I remember one incident that I'm sure John will remember quite well. Back in those days, Lena was much the same as today. Everybody didn't have a vehicle. Matter of fact, the network people didn't have any vehicles. We had to borrow vehicles to go anywhere. So, although the network did have one vehicle, and when I was St. John, and I had occasion to borrow it, but this occasion we didn't have one, so I went up by bus to Fredericton, and John would get, in this case it was John who met me, borrowed the wire chief's car. It was a 55 Chevy, remember John? Well, I don't know if you know 55 Chevys, but they have an ignition in them that when you turn the key off, if you don't turn up the lock and you pull a key out, you can still start it and drive it, which was very fortunate for us. The night that we were there was freezing rain. We only had to go up to Maryland Hill, which doesn't seem like much, but try going up Regent Street when it's covered with freezing rain. So we did make it up Regent. It turned in to go up to the TD2 tower, and no way could we make it. So nothing to do, but we had to get out and put chains on the car. So I shut the car off, keys in hand, opened the trunk, and we get out and we put chains under it and slam the trunk down. I get in to drive off and discover, uh-oh, the keys are in the trunk. So anyway, we started the car, and because you can still start it with the ignition, drove it up to the TD2 hut. And it fell to John, since he was in the mobile radio at that time. They used to install sets in cars, so he knew all about cars. And he had to take it back to the wire chief anyway, so he took it down to the shop, took the back seat out of it, took it all apart. I guess, I don't know if he ever found out about that or not, but shortly after, John was transferred to St. John. Anyway, John and I go back a long ways, and John, quite an entrepreneur, as somebody mentioned here earlier. When he did come to St. John, I was a relatively new married man, but I was married, and I had a house out in the Glen with 2 mortgages on it. We didn't even have a car then, because I was looking at getting an old, I think it was a 39 Ford I was dickering to buy. And John and I did a lot of work together, so at one point I brought him home and introduced him to my wife, and we started talking about what he did. And you know, when she found out that A, he was single, making the same wage as I was, B, he had a cottage in Grand Lake, C, he had a big powerboat, which he took us out for a cruise in the St. John River on, and he had a convertible car. She didn't know whether she liked me going on the road with him or not. Anyway, she used to threaten me that if I didn't behave myself, she was going to leave me and go after John. But I, unlike John, you know, I was invited into that hallowed hall of engineering. And as a matter of fact, I got to go twice. But the first time I went, John gave me the send-off. So, John, I don't know if you remember this or not, but it was quite a thing for somebody to go from plant, because I was in those days into engineering. And so they made a real big to-do about it and had a kind of a party, and I was pretty impressed with the party. Got a little high in the process of things. They made a mortar hat out of a reel, a wire reel from the frame, and they had an old velvet cloak that they put on me, and this was a graduation, and they gave me this certificate. And I always look around for some memorabilia when I want to say welcome to retirement to somebody, so I dug this out, John, and although you can't have it, I'll read it to you, and you can look at it after. It's open to anybody to look at, and then I'll give you your certificate later. It says at the top here, Peperonius taxidermis excelsoramus Salamonius. The Plant University, good old PU. Engineering Department Diploma. Honorary Doctorate of Engineering. This is to certify that Geraldus J. Macraeus, B.S., Ph.D. has finally been kicked out of the plant department. and installed as assistant chief money spender of the engineering department of said company. This diploma authorizes the above named to spend any amount of money to help his old plant buddies. Signed and sealed, run off the mouth, Dean of Money Waster. That was John Fallon. Anyway, John, I have a certificate here from the Telephone Pioneers to welcome you into our Howland Halls. And if you come up, I'll give it to you.
Forgot all about that. I guess we gotta do something.
Oh, thank you. Looking right over here, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. And I think it's pretty significant of John, and Jerry mentioned it, that I think John would be the first one to give credit to the people around him that have helped him along in various ways. In fact, one quote from very early days was that he appreciated this so much that he repeated over and over and over and over again that they were the salt of the earth.
Yes.
John will shed a little light on that later for anybody that wants to know about it. And I guess the current team that John's working with, Dave Milton has got a presentation from the Bruntec team.
You gonna say something?
I'm not a Toastmaster. I don't have any good one-liners like all these other guys. Anyway, Jim Cookson in the audience?
Couldn't count.
Couldn't count. Too bad.
Call me today.
Okay, never mind. What I got here is something we all sort of put together. I did the artwork. It's a book of cartoons about Bruntec. And we called it The Truth About Bruntec Book. And you're in here.
Once or twice.
Well, just once. We've got you engaging in one of your favorite activities. So it's near the back. Everybody's in here. We didn't miss anybody.
Good.
And I just thought it would bring you some nice memories. So get up here.
It says the insults expressed herein are not necessarily those of the artist, his management, or sponsors.
There's another area, I guess, of having worked for John that was pretty significant. That in most people have found it when they worked with John is that he was really sincere and made a great effort to develop the people that worked with him. And there's a couple of examples of that I can tell you about. One, not very long after starting in the Fredericton Central Office, Merle Chapman was pretty new at the job. But John, in his persuasive and skillful manner, once kind of Merle got through some of the basics, there was a fairly major cutover coming up in the Minto Chipman area, which Merle, of course, that was his home turf. So he was really familiar with all of the area and everything down there. And John sort of convinced Merle through, like I say, his very skillful ways, and kind of pumped him up that this was a good opportunity for development, for self-development, and really take charge of this particular project and really run with it and the whole thing. So Merle was, really keyed up for all of this, and when I took it on, I did a fine job on it, by the way, but put on a lot of miles and worked a lot of long hours. And it wasn't really till quite a bit later that he realized that he was the lowest paid craftsman that John had, and he probably got the job done a lot cheaper using Merle than he would have done with anybody else. But he kind of ended up getting a real top quality job at the very lowest possible cost. So like he was into the team share thing a long time ago. And another one that I found that and it was a day not much different than today, beautiful sunny day, and I was working. It was a Sunday, and I was working in the Fredericton office, and at that time there was only one person in there, and you kind of ran around and did everything. But there would be fairly long periods where there wasn't a whole lot to do. But so John came down one morning, fairly, I guess 9 o'clock or so, and he had a briefcase and a whole sheath of papers, and well, Les, you've been around this department for quite a while now, and you know you're starting to get a few years under your belt. And there's one area that you really haven't been exposed to that I think you should be involved in, and that's on the budget side of things. So and he went through it with me, kind of laid out the forms and how develop the number of hours that you need, the capital hours and the routine hours and all of that, and find the people in the overtime and blah blah blah. Oh, they explained it all out anyway. So he said, this will be really good for your development, and I think you should tackle it. So sure enough, I said, yeah, okay, fine, I'll sit down. And he said, if you need me, I'll be down the lake sailing. And he was half right, because it was kind of good for my development, but I don't think it did a lot for his sailing. Which kind of leads us into the next presentation, and as a representative of the crew from the Castle Rose, Brian Roberts got a presentation to make. Uh-oh.
Honored guests, friends, and Captain Bly himself. You think that the bidding was bad to get the MC job? You should have seen the crew members. As Mr. Celeste mentioned earlier, John had some colorful terms he used to describe engineers. You should see how he describes his crew members. I first ran into John back in 1967 up in the Buick building. And I was fairly new with the company. Thought I knew a lot about technology, etc. There were a few routine cards I just couldn't understand. Clean the bilge, wax the hull,
Pump the boat.
John had a beautiful sailboat, Chris Craft, I believe, wasn't it, John? A large one? Very much like that. John enlisted a group of us one day. It was a slow day in the office, so he said, I have a job for you guys. Down we went, and we helped John install the depth sounder in his boat. He ran aground 3 times that summer. My next experience with John in the water was last spring. John called Larry McDonald and I and asked if we would crew for him at Wednesday night races. I should have remembered the depth sounder. We said yes. John decided that he wanted to do a little better in the racing. He wasn't finishing that well. Sometimes he wasn't finishing at all. Started off by changing crew. Didn't help. Bought new sails. Didn't help. So one night, over Cokes back in the clubhouse, John developed another strategy. We'll confuse them. So we started out to confuse them. We tried putting the spinnaker upside down once. That didn't work. We went around marker buoys the wrong direction. That didn't work. One race, we even sent a crew member to the top of the mast twice in the middle of the race. That didn't work. It's hard to confuse the other boats, John, when they're half a mile ahead of you. However, John does persevere, as we all know, and he finally devised the correct strategy that led to a win. Gene, would you stand up for a minute, please? John left town one Wednesday and left the boat in the hands of Gene Ramsey. We won the first day.
You're right.
John, I know you're going to have a lot more time now to spend doing things, so I have a little presentation here on behalf of the crew, and especially Larry and myself, that if you use it properly, it'll help your sailing skills.
You're bad. Depth sounder?
Regatta.
That's great.
Oh, yeah. It's a game of regatta.
I carpool with Brian and Larry, so I really kind of got into following this whole thing after they started sailing with John on Wednesdays. And like a typical Wednesday for them would be to stay in, you know, kind of after work and grab a bite to eat and then go over to the club. And I guess they'd probably head out about 6 o'clock up to Kennebec cases and, you know, that sort of thing, ending up around dusk. The one guy that really benefited from all of this was the timekeeper at the club, who was responsible for getting everybody back across the line, because he got double time after midnight. We've got a presentation coming up from the Bruntec mobile team here, but there's one little thing. In fact, Jerry McRae, it was interesting that Jerry mentioned about John's involvement with mobile at one time, because typically in the Fredericton area, I guess this was one of the things that you ended up doing up there. And this is a source that goes back before my time, mind you, but apparently John was doing an installation for the city Fredericton police, and got the set all mounted and the antenna all mounted and everything, was having real problems getting the thing to work, and couldn't quite figure it out until someone pointed out that it had a fiberglass roof on it. And he kind of lost his grounding playing on all of this before he realized it. Anyway, the Bruntec mobile team, Eric Gallant.
Well, John, during your retirement, we figure probably once every couple of weeks you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to be asking yourself that question. You're going to wander around from room to room looking for the answer. And you're going to get to the radio room with all the new high-tech, state-of-the-art surface mount technology. You're going to find the answer.
Right.
Just remember, when you use it, the handle has historically been red.
Thanks, Eric.
High tech? Narrow on it. Got it?
Where's Claudette?
That's it right there.
What's the question?
I don't think I'll hold the handle. That's hot.
What's hot?
Right, what's hot?
That's hot.
What's hot today?
And next we have a presentation of gifts from the Bruntec employees, Michelle Dupray.
Hi, John. I had my speech all written in French, but I forgot it home.
Good man.
So I guess I got a few presents here from the Bruntec group, just so we won't forget us.
Right. I couldn't forget you guys.
This one you really need it.
All right, just the one, is there? Are we open it?
Sure, start with one.
Open here, they know me.
Oh, yes. Very good. Very good.
And it gets bigger.
It says open the other end on this one. See how you got to do that.
Any help, Chip?
Eggs.
Okay, and now we have a presentation for John's daughter, Helen Ellison, please.
Robert, on behalf of the Bruntec team, we have a gift for you, and we'd also like to wish you the very best in the future of your father's retirement. And we know you're going to be busy this summer with going to camp and also with sailing and all the other things your father has scheduled for you. But I do hope you will find time to come in and see us occasionally.
No instructions on her.
She didn't need them.
Oh boy. Oh, you got it. She's been looking at that in the case for ages. Thank you.
And presentation of the NBTel employee's gift, Kevin Morris, please.
Yeah, pick your
Just like all the other stuff.
It's like
I don't know who's more shaky, me or him. My little box.
Good work, Bob.
Okay. I don't have any 30-year-old stories, John. I can say when he started with NBTel, my mother and father hadn't met yet. That's all I got for stories.
Good shot.
I've been saving that one for a long time. Before I present the employee gift, John, I'd like to give you a little reminder of the time here, something to help you on your future quest of the good word. For the last few years, pretty much on a daily basis, John would go out to his flock, go out to see the troops, and pose a question. What's the good word? What's the good word? And I'm sure over the years you've probably had several interesting responses.
A few good words, a few bad words.
Michelle always had some French ones.
So John, you have to realize that here on in, we're not going to be around every day to provide you with a good word when you need one. Not that you were ever short of a word, good or bad. So in the future, if you need a good word, feel free to open this box and take one out. So John, don't read any now, please. All the contributors made that request.
Okay. Can they be opened in public?
I've put together a little prose. I had a G rated, a PG, and an X rated version, but I kept the PG. John. 36 years you were here, and now you are gone. No longer the need to get up and put on your band roll-on, a gravy-stained tie, or a one-pound suit on. Yes, gone are the days of rising at dawn to fight City Hall with your brains in your bra. You can get up at 10 just to stretch and yawn. Perhaps venture outside and maybe mow the lawn. But here at Bruntec, life must go on. And since you were leaving, we brought in the dawn. Dawn? I was supposed to laugh.
That was licensed.
And so now that you've had your turn in the barrel, I present to you this box of apparel. It's from all your friends here at NBTel. We're going to miss you and wish you well.
So it's Kevin Morris to present. They don't leave anything out.
Except for the candles.
And your Paul? You're in charge of everything. A logbook. Wow. Brian, we're saved. Oh boy. Go with the other? Very nice. Wow, look at that. White bottom snake, huh? Really good. What's this Kevin Morris? 2-2. I know, Advantage 12, right? Oh boy. Oh man, am I saying? Beautiful. Thank you very much. It's a wetsuit.
Of course.
Just before we turn the microphone over to John, and just you can all steel yourselves ready for this, but just one more. Herb mentioned about the Sage Buick building, and it's another another area where John and I kind of shared careers for a bit. We had 16 weeks, I think, in Smith Falls together on course, and really got to see a lot of one another in class every day, and eating meals together, and you know, kicking around in the evening, and other than the time he was at the hairdresser, it was. He'll explain that to anybody who wants to. But the Buick building provided some real, and that course provided some real memories for all of us. And one in particular, I don't know if we should mention the situation that went on, but it was back a few years ago, and we found ourselves back in the Buick building, kind of unexpectedly. But And I don't know if you ever told anybody about that trouble, John, but there were two central processors in that machine. One kind of worked to back up the other one, and one of them ended up going in trouble while we were there. And try as we could not get that rascal back on its feet. So, and we worked on it. I don't know if I dare say how many days, but we finally got to the point we just couldn't solve it. So John got on the phone and contacted the tech center, and they said, look, we think we can help you track it down, but we need a particular test set to do this, and the closest one happened to be in Maine at one of the sites there. So John again contacted the foreman down there, and the guy said, yeah, sure, we'll get it up as far as the border, and you come across and pick it up. So Jim Cookson was in the area at the time, and Jim had a root job and a truck and all kinds of gear in it and everything. So we said, well, Jim, John said, you go down, across at Vansboro and meet this guy and pick the test set up. We'll go back and get in business. So it wasn't long after, and I think I was there that night when John got the call. This guy says, this is customs. We have one of your men here and one of your trucks, and there's a pretty sophisticated looking test set here that he readily admits is not his. And what are we going to do about duty on it? So John, John's got a lot of virtues, patience isn't one of them. Particularly trying to explain to this guy that this was only a test that we're going to have for a short time and then be back. We weren't purchasing, we're trying to smuggle it. Well, it looks pretty sophisticated to me. There's lights on and all this stuff, and this guy was going on and on. And John was pacing more and fidgeting more and trying to get across to this guy that this really wasn't an effort to smuggle anything. Anyway, so the guy said, well, I don't know, we'll have to try to figure this out. So kind of basically hung up, and later on, Jim Cookson called, said on the mobile, and says, I'm on my way back, fixed it up, I'll talk to you later about it. So then when you get in the office, John says, how did you manage to get the thing through? And Jim says, well, I took the easiest route out and I slipped the guy $20. At which point John turned noticeably pale. And Jim's main concern was he wanted to know how he was going to get his $20. So John really went to bat for his employee that time, tried to avoid a major international incident, and perhaps I best let him tell you the rest of the story. So John, your comments.
Thanks, Les, and that's a good way to lead in, because there's a few parts of the story you got a little out of whack, but anyway. As it turns out, phone call came about the right time for Jim to have arrived back at customs, no doubt about it. And the customs agent said to me, we have this fellow here and he has a test set and it has Western Electric on it. I said, yes, that's where it was built. He said, what is it? I said, it's a matcher test set. Oh, is that right? What would it be worth? I said, it's about $400. We couldn't get one because we couldn't afford ours. But it was the test set which attached to the program address bus, and you could trigger a scope at a certain event at a certain program address, so you could see what was happening in the computer at a certain time. So anyway, I said, well, what would be the chance of getting that through? He said, well, you're going to have to pay at least 10%. I think it was 10% or 5%, I forget now. Anyway, so I said, that's all right. I said, is Mr. Cookson there? He said, yes, he's here. So I get Jim on the phone. I said, Jim, for heaven's sakes, give the man the money and get out of there. So he got back, and he says to me, how do I get my money? I said, that's the price of failure. His job was to smuggle the darn thing across the border. Now, I fully intended to give him the money, but I was having a lot of fun with it. That's not the end of the story. Because about 3 days later, after I had been telling the story to 4 or 5 people, and Jim's been after me about his $20, George Dmitri comes and says, John, you know, you've been had. He said, that wasn't a customs agent. That was Bill Fulton. not the end of the story. I was on the night shift. See, this was during the strike. I was on the 8 till 8 shift. And Jim was a route guy. We had more alarms that week, and every one of them turned out on his route. I think the last one was Thursday morning at the manhole on the Wolsey Road. Friday morning in the office, when I went in to take the tickets back, Jim looked up at me as I came in the door and said, "Uncle." It's the best joke that's ever been told on me. I had quite a crew up there, for sure. Anyway, excuse my voice. I've been nursing the first cold in a year. I'm spending too much time in the boatyard lately, in the wet weather. I want to thank everybody, particularly the extra special people at Bruntec. The dynamic trio, Chris and Kathy and Lynn, certainly for all of their efforts. Kevin and the boys for all of the technical achievements that have kept my life extremely exciting for the last 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years. And all of the technical people, and all the people on the wheel, Helen and the gang on the wheel, I thank you very much. You know, it's funny. Late in your career, someone gives you good advice. I was talking to Bert this morning, just as I came in here today, Bert Oliver. I said, "Bert, what's the secret to success?" He said, "Well, there's 2 real good secrets to success." He said, "Number 1, don't tell everything you know." Do you have any other questions? I wished I'd learned that long time ago. As I said earlier, I figure there's a lot of you here because you're bound determined you're going to see me out of here and make sure I'm gone. But I do thank you very much. This has been great. Robin, I'm sure, is having a great time. My father-in-law is having a good time, I think. He didn't intend to be up in the front. He got tied to a chair back there, and I had to drag him out of it. But we've really enjoyed this. As I said earlier, or as was said earlier, we are moving the boats out onto the water in the next day or so, and it's really going to be fun. And I'm really going to enjoy using all of this great stuff, particularly the logbook and a few other things that I need. I want to tell you, I won after Gene won a race. Well, did you win that race, Gene? What a time to win a race. I just had the crew all trained. Anyway, but we got it made this year. We got a fast bottom, and we got a fast crew, and we're going to get Gene on as a consultant. But I thank you very much. You've been great. It's been great working here. It's been exciting. I've had a lot of fun, as you probably heard. I was scared to death. I talked my mother out of coming. I said, "Mom, you don't want to come." She said, "No, I really shouldn't because my sister's in the hospital." "You're right. You stay right home." I was scared because, you know, this was mild. There was so many other ones.
Tell us a few.
When Jerry got up, I was really scared. But the real terror was when I saw who the MC was going to be. Because if anyone knows where the skeleton is, he does. Again, thank you very much. I'm going to enjoy retiring. I can tell you the last 2 weeks have been fun. It's really great to get out there and do things, what you want to do, when you want to do it, provided Robin agrees.
Thank you, John. Well, that just about wraps things up for now, folks. A couple of things to remind you of. If you haven't had a chance to sign the guest book, please do so. I'm sure John would like to have a memory of all the folks we're able to get out. It's amazing what a free lunch will bring out.
Well, I had one other job.
The MC gets last trick of the night.
No. Larry Thompson, get up here. When I went in to sign Larry up to be a telephone pioneer, I took the whole office crew upstairs. He was on the phone. He stayed on the phone 6.5 minutes after we got there. So Larry, on behalf of all the gang, congratulations.
Just as a final wrap-up, if any of you want to, that haven't had an opportunity, want to wish John your personal best wishes, I just encourage you to kind of stay over this side of the room because we are going to head down to the cafeteria for some light refreshments. And just prior to that, Lou Daigle is going to ask the grace. Lou?
Are you going to sing it, Louie?
Are you sure?
Okay. May all stand, please. Heavenly Father, we ask that all here, we ask the people here, ask you to bless John and Robin on his retirement, the special day that he's having here, to continue watching over him and guarding him. And we also ask that you bless the food that's down in the cafeteria waiting for us. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, and feel free, as I mentioned, the refreshments are in the cafeteria. Thank you all for coming.
You see this? Wow, that is Wayne Lewis and I spent the whole afternoon.
I was wishing I could have drawn something up and brought it.
That was good.
Artistic talent. I made it
Thank you, Chief. I enjoyed that. You were gentle. I was worried. Thanks, guy.
I knew about the wrong over here.
I know. I should have brought it up.
See you at the barbecue.
How's that? Thanks, guy. What do you have to do now? Congratulations. Hey, once a month. Good luck, John. Enjoy it. Hey, very nice. Thank you. How about that? Anytime. You guys are great. Hey. I never get that. We know each other well. Here you go.
Congratulations, John.
Don't even think about it.
Hey, you big spabber.
John, can we look at these now?
No, I don't think it's a good idea.
Can we look at these now?
You know what Robin hollered the other night? You've got to stop flirting with Marie Quebec. You asked her about it. You asked her. Right in the middle of the night. You said, Robin, what are you talking about? She said, what did I say? You asked her. Hope those maestros keep coming her way.
Oh, yeah, I hope so too. If not, I'll call you.
All the best luck.
That's right. Good job. No, I wasn't here at the time. Johnny? That was here one at a time. Thank goodness it was over there. I know. Thank you. Hey, you still at it?
Look, I'm cleaning up your mess again.
Thank you.
All the best, John. Teresa, how's my favorite customer? Good. Teresa, to give you her best wishes. She's got a babysit.
Oh, no. That's great, too. I saw Chris here. David, that's Chris. That really is. got chocolate on the first floor, especially the Kathy one with the cigarette.
Hey, I didn't find that very funny.
All the best, buddy. Oh, yeah. That's great stuff. 2 weeks. I'm going to try it. He's next. Good luck, Tom. I'm 5 minutes. What are you doing? You got a long time to go. That's right. I mean, you haven't. All companies. Yes, I'll do that. When are you? 2 weeks? Well, next week? I'll be there. Good luck. Jason, thank you very much for all that. This is great.
Congratulations, John. All the
Anything,
best.
fella?
Oh, thanks, great.
Time to go. Great much. They did a lot for me. This is another one of these guys that knows too much.
Good luck, John. Mike called me just before we left.
Did?
Yeah, he was going to come over, but he got tied up.
Oh, dear.
He sends us back.
Did you get the or the and straightened out yet?
Commander, hi, guy.
All the best. That was good.
All the best. Let's go to picture there.
And what do you think? Nice, pretty good. I got a picture when they were talking about the opening of that of the Buick. Yeah. There's a picture of the house. You're leaning behind me. It looks like you're looking right up the rear end. And John.
Well, I'm trying to get in the picture.
No, Herb's on the other side of me. You're talking to him. And I put a little decal over the top and it says, "Hey Herb, it's coming up this end too." Congratulations. Thanks, man. When are you going to do it? Okay. He's got the camera on. I know when you did it. Thanks, man. That's a lot of fun, work. Yeah. Great. How's the number one? I know who's number one. We'll have more time to practice. I'm the best. When you coming? Good job. Thank you for coming.
I quit when we got home.
Oh, Mary?
Stay for the long when you came the other day.
Good luck, John.
This guy went ahead of me.
Just pay him away.
He's got a spot on the park for me with the pigeons. Or is it over in the...
Newfoundland brings peanuts.
Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
And we never did get that project done.
What?
We never did get that project done.
Take care of that phone.
Okay. Look at the old fella coming here.
Good luck, John.
Thanks, guy.
Hey, John.
Hey, listen. Salt of the earth.
Salt of the earth.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
I couldn't say anything.
I've got a message for you. I've got 2 messages for you.
What's that?
June says she's got a picture she wants to show you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, not all of them. That's the picture.
And secondly, she wants you to come over and disconnect the equipment.
I gotta go see her.
Yeah, but she'd like you to do it. She's scared of it.
Yeah, she's got nothing to worry about.
Take care.
I did. Thank you very much. You look after that. Who's this? How are you making out? Every time, thank you, guy. Hi there.
I thought I told him I'd have to go out and see the old crowd.
This guy in mind.
Well, look who's here.
Remember, hey, you talk about a story, remember? He put on a course one time in the cafeteria, and all the guys were in there and he was saying about defensive driving, so I got up and says, well, we got no bags of sand, we got no this. He gets up in Hong Kong, we're but a white man.
Thanks, guy.
Hi there. That's a kid.
Is she big? Thanks,
All the best, John.
Thanks, guy.
Wish you all the best. Yeah, it is this thing. Yeah. You have a really good time, this summer. Oh, we're going to give you a
Hi, Charles.
So the first thing you're going to do is build bedroom, lobby, right?
Oh, God. Did you have to say that? Thanks, Charles. Again.
Hold on, Nancy, wait till I stand up.
I can't remember what I'm supposed to do with you. You got all those guys around you.
I can't reach across the table.
I know. Give that guy a hug.
Good luck, John.
Mike?
All the best.
Yeah, you must be the oldest one there now, eh?
Yeah. Moxie's got a few more years on it.
Oh, right. I forgot about Moxie.
What do you think of the boat?
Oh, that's really
Terry built that.
Who did that? Terry?
That's Harry, pretty sure.
Somebody mentioned that. Think of a float?
All the best, John.
See, Tuesday is
For Bob Jones as well, he can make it this afternoon.
Great crowd. Well, what are you saying, fella? Where's that gal?
She's home.
Yeah. She doing all, she got a job yet?
Should be looking.
Well, she shouldn't have any problem.
Well, no, not really.
You're too far away. I can't
Shirley,
get
just
ya.
a minute.
You're too far away.
How you doing?
Well, I was
Best wishes,
sort of
old
got here
man.
at
I
the tail
should have
end.
been here earlier.
I was here at the tail end because I had other business.
I know. You're
Busy.
arranging your curling match or something.
No, I was to Northern Telecom.
I'll try.
Only I will. I got straight up.
It's an old fellow I met along the way. All the men, don't kiss me. Don't kiss me.
Hey, didn't he used to hang out in Lancaster?
A lot.
Oh, yeah.
Don't tell them that story.
I haven't seen you. I would have told you. How's your play going?
Really gonna leave?
Has your display phone still working? Kevin, you remember that display phone that kit we sent over?
No.
The old IBM terminal and the, what was it, a doodle phone?
Yes. How's your digits working these days?
How are you doing?
Great.
Wasn't that quite a party?
Oh, what is good?
You're enjoying yourself already.
Oh, yes, we are. Who's this kid?
Oh, that's all. I'm Robin. I know you're attracted to him. We've been talking to you.
Yeah, he's been summertime.
He's pretty, yes.
There you go.
Saving the best.
John's too tall. I keep shooting up.
Good? Hey, get up.
Kevin, get this.
Got it. I'm gonna make money off of this one.
Yeah, you're going to have lots of time.
With big bucks.
Yeah, we'll say number of times.
You weren't by there a week or
You
so ago,
told
were
us
you?
that so
What?
many
No, I
times.
wasn't. Something happened?
Somebody went by with a sailboat blowing.
No. It had to be low with water that time.
I
Yeah.
didn't think you'd be able to.
No, that was the water that time.
How are you?
Want to get to the front of the line? See that picture?
I'll go see that.
John, I thought this was your job. It is. I was wondering how he was going to make a presentation and photography at the same time. Well, what do you think? Well, glad to have it. Oh, did you hear about the passage?
Yeah, I did, yeah. They already talked to me about
I looked for you earlier.
Yeah, I bet you did. Yeah, I bet you did. Hey, this is...
Is that right? Yeah, but it's not a bad one though. I didn't do badly. I could always get something going.
Yeah, I know you could all get them. You and Art Bond should have went together.
What? See you on the river? Absolutely. I'll bring you up there. Once in a while, you have to work though. How many years you got? Learn to sail. All right. You're not close enough to Victoria Shoal for me to worry about.
Good words then.
No.
Well, Craig's point.
The left one's got more hair in it.
You're buying a sports car?
No Volkswagen. Yeah, no, I'm going back the other way. I'm going to Volkswagen. What do you think?
I don't know why you never gave up sports.
Well, because they stopped making the cars.
You remember that?
Yeah, I know. Mustangs.
Mustang.
Yeah. Good luck. So tell me.
Well, pretty simple.
Nice seeing you.
Getting this?
All of it.
What's the boss to pay you to ask or something?
No. But he's getting, so I've asked everybody through here, so we're passing it over to personnel afterwards.
Yeah, no problem. Just tell them.
I'm on a fixed income now. I have to do everything I can.
Realize that.
Yeah.
Okay? It's awful hard to live on a fixed income.
Walter there, he's the one that's, look how successful he was. See, look at that. Huh? What? Just do it. Got that whole splinter down the side.
As long as they keep putting spare parts in, I'm happy.
You had some parts put in?
Well, I had a new aorta a few years ago, and had a double bypass last fall.
Well, wears good on you.
Great stuff.
Okay.
He didn't open it. You guys gonna give him some
Which one? Oh, yeah, that's one.
I just wanted to see these things.
Are you guys going to go to smoke? I have one.
Oh, there's telephone.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. a real one. Barbarian, extra large.
I have another one up there, but I can't order if you want it, John. Same name.
All right. All right, I want to see you.
Where'd everybody go?
We're all done with the cake.
Congratulations, John.
Thanks, kids. Here.
That is nice.
When they're young and beautiful like this, I'm going to hug them.
Close up.
Congratulations. It was really
That's worth retiring for, isn't
Isn't that?
That's
You
right.
get a chance to hug her. I mean,
Perfect, John. I'll see you around. Come and visit.
absolutely.
Bye.
No? No?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say what's doing. Good fun. How's it going? Good. Starting from the long way along. Right. It's going to work better if he's got it all on tape. Yeah, we've said it, we committed ourselves. See you later. Going relationship, but it's almost as bad as Gemini, or worse than Gemini in the cross-border incident. That was the best joke ever. I went on for a week telling people that story, and I was had. He was in on it. Well, he must put it. You didn't mention your finger this much. Show him your finger you lost. While he was in the safety room. Yeah, no, they've got to have a safety room. I was in the they put up a new safety logo, safety is part of the job. Yeah.
picture of these taken. I wasn't expecting anything that serious. Lee, did you find out the story about why we have to stop burning?
No, I didn't. Do I have to ask?
Clean up. This is clean up. This is what we're paid to do, I guess. What are we gonna do with these chairs, Merle?
Oh, it's nice and cool in here now.
What, Merle?
Book's still here.
What book?
This one. Oh, yeah, right, Kevin. Show me stealing John's book here. You got the evidence. I'm going to get a copy of this.
All this wrapping paper and everything else.
You have a copy of this, or is it copyrighted?
Oh, I have a copy